This lesson is kind of a continuation of our previous lesson. We are still going to learn to factor here. And we are factoring trinomials. Again, every time you factor, the first question you always want to ask yourself is there any common terms that you can pull out? So you want to look at the numbers and look at the variables in each trinomial and see if you can pull anything out. Here, when I look at the numbers, 6, 22, and 8, 2 is divisible by each of those numbers is divisible by 2, so I can pull out a 2. And they also each have at least one y in them. So in this case, I can pull out a 2y, and then I want to go ahead and see what I'm left with. So 2y times 3y squared gives me 6y cubed. 2y times negative 11y gives me negative 22y. And 2y times negative 4 gives me negative 8y. Now I've got a trinomial in the middle, 3y squared minus 11y minus 4, that can be factored by undoing the FOIL. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to list. Notice I brought my 2y down. Don't forget about whatever it is you pulled out in front. You need to keep bringing it down. So I wrote it underneath. Okay? I want to list my factors of 3y squared. So I'm going to list my factors of 3y squared. How do I get 3y squared? The only way to do that is y and 3y. And then back here I'm going to list my factors of 4, which could be 1 and 4, or 2 times 2. Okay? So here we go. My two fronts have to make my front, which is 3y squared. So I only have one choice, y and 3y. My two backs have to make 4. So here's my two backs. They have to make negative 4. I will try 1 and 4. When it's negative back here, you have to have one positive and one negative. Alright, now I'm going to check my outsides and my insides. So, when I check my outsides, I have negative 4y. When I check my insides, I have positive 3y. Negative 4y plus 3y gives me negative 1y, and I need to have negative 11y in the middle. So that's not it. So I'm going to keep my y and my 3y. I don't have any other choice otherwise. And I'm going to switch my 4 and my 1 and see if that helps. Okay? Now when I check my outsides, I have negative y. When I check my insides, 4y times 3y is 12y. Negative y plus 12y gives me 11y in the middle. But I need to have negative 11y in the middle, which is a hint that, just a reminder, you need to switch your positives and your negatives. Okay? And now when you check your outsides, you have positive y, insides, negative 12y, 1y minus 12y is negative 11y, and we are good. Okay? So, this should be your final answer. Don't forget to bring down whatever it was you factored out, like that. Okay? Here, I want to move everything to one side. I like my highest exponent term to be positive, so my 2x cubed already is positive, so I'm going to leave it on that side. And I am going to move this over by adding x squared, and I will move this over by subtracting 6x. Okay? So when I list my terms in descending order now, I have 2x cubed plus x squared minus 6x equals 0. Again, whenever you're factoring, you always want to ask yourself, is there anything you can pull out? Do these terms have anything in common? And in this case, I can't pull any numbers out because the 1 x squared 1 is not divisible by anything. But each term does have at least an x to it. So I can pull out an x. Okay? And then I need to figure out x times what gives me 2x cubed. And that would be 2x squared. X times what gives me x squared. And that would be 1x. X times what gives me negative 6x, and that would be negative 6. Okay, so here's where I'm at. And now, again, super common mistake is people forget to bring down what they pulled out. So bring down that x, and then the part that's in parentheses, you're going to end up factoring. Okay? So, I want to list my factors so that I can get 2x squared. The only way to get 2x squared is x and 2x. And then if I list the factors in my back, 6 could be 1 and 6, or 2 and 3. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start with my front. My two fronts, here and here, have to make 2x squared. I only have one choice, x and 2x. My two backs, I have to make my back, so I will start with 1 and 6. If it's a negative back here, then you need to have one of each. And I will see if this works. Okay, so here we go. Outsides, negative 6x. Insides, positive 2x. Negative 6 plus 2x gives me negative 4x. And notice I need to get 1x in the middle. That's not it. Okay. So I'm going to switch the 6 and the 1. And I'll try that. Outsides, negative x. Inside, positive 12x. That gives me 11x. And I need 1x. So it appears that 6 and 1 will not work. Okay. So I've exhausted my 6 and 1. And now I'm going to go to 2 and 3. Alright. Outsides, negative 3x. Insides, 2x times 2x is 4x. Negative 3x plus 4x does make 1x. And that's what I need in the middle. And so I'm good. Now, this one asks you to solve it. It has an equal sign in it. And you need to solve it, which means you need to take each part, even the part that you pulled out in front, and set them equal to 0. So I'm going to do this. X equals 0, and x can be 0. Okay? 0 times, it doesn't matter what's left behind it, 0 times anything is 0. Right here, I'll take this parentheses and set it equal to 0 and solve. Okay, when I plug negative 2 into that parentheses, negative 2 plus 2 is 0. And if that parentheses is 0, it doesn't matter what anything else is, because 0 times anything is 0. And then, of course, take this parentheses and solve it. Set it equal to 0 and solve. So we have 3 solutions to this problem. X could be 0, negative 2, or 3 halves. And as long as x is one of those 3 numbers, and I plug it back into the original problem up there, I will get 0 for an answer. Alright, here's another one. Again, you want to ask yourself, is there anything I can factor out of 12x squared minus 36x plus 15? And in this case, you can pull a 3 out, so I will pull a 3 out. And then I have 3 times 4x squared gives me 12x squared. 3 times negative 12x gives me negative 36x. And 3 times 5 gives me the 15. Okay. So, don't forget to bring down what you pulled out in front. Okay. Then I will factor this trinomial. And I will start by listing the factors. So, 4x squared could be 2x and 2x, and 1x and 4x. 5 could be 1 and 5, and that's it. That's the only ways you can get it. So I will start by doing 2x and 2x. Okay, my two fronts have to make my front. And then my two backs have to make my back. So 1 and 5. Only choice I have. When it's a positive in the back, right here, you have to have either plus plus or minus minus. Hint, 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 hint. That's minus in the middle, so minus minus is probably what it's going to be. Okay? So now I'm going to try this. Outsides and insides. Outsides, negative 10x. Insides, negative 2x. That makes negative 12x in the middle. Look at this, I got lucky right away. Negative 10x plus negative 2x does make negative 12x. Okay? So there we go. This also is set equal to 0, so you're going to take each part and set it equal to 0. So here I will have 3 equals 0. Here I will have 2x minus 1 equals 0. Here I will have 2x minus 5 equals 0. When I solve these, here I'll add 5. So x could be 5 halves. here, I have no x's in it. And guess what? 3 does not equal 0. 3 can't be 0. So that is not a solution. If I had had this, then I could divide by 3, and x would be 0. But since I have no x in it, there's nothing that x can be, and 3 never equals 0 anyways. So I only have 2 solutions to this. Alright, here's another one. Again, you want to ask yourself, what can you pull out? 2, 24, and 36 are all divisible by 2, so I can pull a 2 out of there. 2 times x squared gives me 2x squared. 2 times negative 12x gives me negative 24x. And 2 times negative 18 gives me negative 36. Okay. Bring down the 2. Don't forget to bring down the 2. Undo the FOIL here. And again, your 2 fronts have to make your front. And if I list the factors of x squared, the only way to get x squared is x times x. The ways to get 18 are 2 and 9, 3 and 6, 1 and 18. Okay, and that's it. So I will start with my 2 fronts. X times x is the only way to give me x squared, so that's good. My backs, I will start with 2 and 9. If it's a minus back here, you need to have one of each, so I'll just put plus and minus and then play with it where I need to. Here we go. Outsides, negative 9x. Insides, positive 2x, which gives me negative 7x, and that doesn't do anything. I can switch my 2 and my 9 in this case, but when you're the 2 things in this case that are in blue right here, they're no different, so I'm going to basically get the same thing, except for I will get negative 2x on my outside and positive 9x on my inside. That's all that's going to happen here. Okay, so 2 and 9 aren't going to cut it. I've exhausted my options with 2 and 9. Okay, so let's try 3 and 6. Here we go. Outsides, negative 6x. Insides, positive 3x. That gives me negative 3x. If I switch the 6 and the 3, it would give me positive 3x. I need to get negative 12x in the middle, so that's not cutting it. Okay, and I have no choice with my fronts. The x and the x are the only way to get x squared, so there's nothing I can do. Then on the back, 1 and 18. So if I do this, I get negative 18x plus 1x gives me negative 17x. If I switch the 18 and the 1, which I can gladly do, then I will have my outsides and my insides. And that gives me positive 17x. So 1 and 18 are not an option either. And I can't do anything with my front because the only way to get x squared is x times x. So this one actually doesn't factor, okay? You can pull the 2 out, but the trinomial piece, this piece of it right here, doesn't factor. There's nothing I can do with it. So I actually can't go any further than that. And that part that's up above is your grand final answer. That's all you can do in this case. You tried to go beyond that. It looks like you should be able to go beyond that, but you can't. And so this is what your final answer has to be. All right. Here, again, I want everything on one side so that it's set equal to 0. You want your exponents in descending order, so your biggest first and then your smallest. I'm going to move my biggest exponent to the other side so that my biggest exponent, which should be listed first, can be positive. Okay? So I have 2x squared plus 2x cubed plus 11x squared minus 6x equals 0. Again, you want to look for, is there anything you can pull out of here or factor out? These terms all have at least an x in them. The numbers are not divisible by anything common, but I can pull out an x. So when I pull out my x, then I have x times 2x squared gives me 2x cubed. X times 11x gives me 11x squared. X times negative 6 gives me negative 6x. Okay, so that's where I'm at. Then, of course, I will try to factor this trinomial. And the factors of 2x squared are 2x and x. That's the only choice I have. The factors of 6 are 2 and 3, or 1 and 6. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to try my fronts. So this times this has to give me 2x squared. The only way to do that is x and 2x. The two backs, this times this, have to give me negative 6. So I have 2 and 3. When it's a negative back here, you need to have one of each. And we'll go ahead and try this. Okay? So here we go. Now I'm going to check my outsides and my insides. Outsides, negative 3x. Insides, positive 4x. That gives me 1x in the middle, but I need 11x. So that didn't quite cut it. Before I cross 3 and 2 off the list, I'm going to switch them around. Put the 3 here and the 2 there. Now when I check my outsides, I have negative 2x, and when I check my insides, I have positive 6x. That gives me positive 4x. I could switch the positives and the negatives around and get negative 4x. That's not going to do me any good because I need 11x in the middle. Okay? So it doesn't look like 3 and 2 is the option. Let's try 6 and 1. Okay. 2 and 3 I've exhausted. So 1 and 6. Here we go. Outsides, negative x. Insides, positive 12x. That does give me 11x in the middle, which is what I need. In this one, you're asked to solve it, so you do have to go one step further and set each part equal to 0. Here I have an x out in front, x equals 0. X can be 0, that is legal. Here, x plus 6 equals 0, subtract 6. X is negative 6. And this part, 2x minus 1 equals 0. Add 1. Divide by 2. And x is 1/2. Alright, this one we've got x's and y's in them. But again, the common goal is what can you plug in here? What can you factor out of here that each number is divisible by? And we have 48 and negative 184 and 56. If we look at our variables, the first term has an x squared, the second term has an x, and the third term doesn't have any x's. So I can't pull any x's out. But if you look at the y's, first term has a y, the second term has a y squared, the third term has a y cubed. So they do all have at least a y to them. So I know for sure I can pull a y out of there. And then it becomes, what can you factor out of 48, 56, and 184? And you kind of have to play. They're all divisible by 2 because they are even numbers. But there's probably a bigger number that they're divisible by. So if we start with 48, 48 is divisible by 6, it's divisible by 8, it's divisible by 12, and 4. So you want to check those numbers and see if any of those other numbers are divisible by that. 56 is also divisible by 8, and 184 is also divisible by 8. Okay? So you'll have to kind of play around with that. They're all divisible by 8. So here we go. 8y times 7x squared gives me, times 6x squared. 6 times 8 is 48. Gives me 48x squared y. 8y, 8 times 23 is 184. I did not pull any x's out, but I pulled one y out already. So I need an x and I need a y right there. And then 8 times 7 gives me 56. I had y cubed, I pulled one out, so I only have y squared left. And now, of course, you want to try and factor that trinomial there. So, I I will list my factors of 6x squared. So that could be x and 6x. It could be 2x and 3x. Okay? On the back, to make 7y squared would be 1y and 7y. It's the only way to get 7y squared. Okay? I am going to start with my two fronts to make 6x squared. I'm going to try 2x and 3x just to start there. 2x times 3x does make 6x squared. Okay, then I'm going to go to my backs. I don't have a choice. I really only have y and 7y. And y and 7y does make 7y squared. If it's a plus back here, it either needs to be plus plus or minus minus. This one, hint hint hint, because the minus is in the middle, will need to be minus minus. Okay? Alright, here we go. Outsides. 2x and negative 7x is negative 14x. On the insides, 3x times y is negative 3y. That gives me negative 17x in the middle, so that's not quite it. I'm going to try switching the y and the 7y. Let's see if that helps. Okay. Here we go. Outsides, negative 2xy. Insides, negative 21xy. When you multiply them. That does give me negative 23xy in the middle, and so this is it. Alright, last one here. Again, you want to look at what numbers these are all divisible by. 30, 46, and 8 are all divisible by 2. Each term does have at least an A in it, so I can pull out an A. And each term does have at least a B in it, so I can pull out a B. Okay? Then 2 times 15 gives me 30. I had A cubed, but I pull one out, so now I only have A squared. I had one B, so I pulled it out, so I don't have any B's left. Okay? On the next one. 2 times 23 gives me 46. I had A squared, but I pulled one out, so I only have one left. I had B squared, so I pulled one out, but I have one left. 2 times 4 gives me 8. I had an A, but I pulled it out, so I don't have any left. I had B cubed, but I pulled one out, so I only have B squared left. Okay? And then, of course, you want to see if you can factor this trinomial. So, the factors of 15a squared are 3a and 5a, or 1a and 15a. The factors of 4b squared would be b and 4b, or 2b and 2b. Okay? And you just have to try it. So here we go, my two fronts. I have to make my front. I am going to try 3a and 5a to make 15a squared. My two backs have to make 4b squared. So I am going to try 2b and 2b. If it's plus back here, it either needs to be plus plus or minus minus. Because this is a plus, it will need to be plus plus. Outsides, 6ab. Insides, 10ab. That gives me 16ab, which is not it. If you switch the 2b and the 2b around, guess what? It's still 2b and 2b, and you're not going to get anything different. So that's not it. And so, let's try b and 4b. Okay? Outsides, 12ab. Insides, 5ab. 12ab plus 5ab makes 17ab, and I need 23ab in the middle. So I will switch the 4b and the b. Here we go. Outsides, 3ab. Insides, 20ab. And 3ab plus 20ab does make 23ab, which is what you need in the middle. So,